Hello friends. Friends, in today's video, we will be talking about the Hiranyagarbha Sukta. Hiranyagarbha Sukta is a very important sukta of the Vedas. It is present in the 10th mandal of Rigveda, and it talks about the origin of this universe and the unity behind it. So it's a very good reference for all the people from Sanatan Dharma to really provide the answer to the allegation that is put against the Sanatan tradition, wherein it is said that it is polytheistic. Now, of course, the Sanatan tradition is polytheistic, wherein we worship all the different kinds of deities. But the idea is that behind all these deities, there is one supreme deity. Now, you can call the supreme deity as Mahadev, or you can call him as Vasudev. Some people call him as Brahman, others can call him as Om. So, behind all these deities, there is one supreme deity which is considered to be the supreme, and everybody who is worshipping these deities of their own are eventually worshipping that single one. So that is the basic idea which is presented in this sukta, wherein the mantra Kasmei Devaya Havisha Vidhema is repeated again and again, which says that which deity do we worship. So the point over here is basically that all the different deities that you worship, behind them there is one single deity who is what we worship, who is behind this entire creation and everything beyond it also. So the allegation that is put on the Sanatan Dharma, wherein it is said that all the different deities are worshipped over here and there is no one single deity. With regards to that, the answer can be provided based on this sukta. And I also think that it really emphasizes the inclusivist approach that Sanatan Dharma has, wherein all the different deities are accepted and they are all considered to be different aspects of that same deity. So it's very important, I think, that this sukta becomes clear to more and more people, because that is the way we can really build an inclusivist society. Otherwise, we will always have exclusion of others. There will be us and them and things like that, which will create all the different levels of friction in the society. So, with that understanding, let us begin the study of this sukta and see what this sukta actually teaches.
हिरण्यगर्भः समवर्तताग्रे भूतस्य जातः पतिरेक आसीत् सदाधार पृथ्वीन्ध्यामुते मां कस्मै देवाय हविषा विधेम. The semen and womb together happened. Ahead the being got birth. Fell the one that happened. He gives base to earth, thinking, meditating on this for which Deva offering is given. The popular description of this first verse of Hiranyagarbha Sukta is to describe Hiranyagarbha to be a golden egg, which came into existence as this universe came into existence. This is an incorrect description of this sukta, and in my personal opinion, an insult to the beautiful idea that has been actually presented here. So let's try and understand the actual idea over here. Sanskrit is a very metaphorical language where a word might have multiple meanings. The word Hiranya can mean gold, but it also means semen. In the Vedic times, sexuality was not a taboo, unlike how it is nowadays due to the influence of other traditions. So, in the Vedas, many of the deep ideas have been expressed using sexual symbols. And I personally think that the Hindu civilization has to drop the defensive attitude towards the gaze of other traditions towards it and accept the real teachings of Vedas with pride. If you look at the Nasadiya Sukta, there we see that the use of semen as a symbol for the origin of the living beings in this universe has been done. The use of semen as the symbol of origin of living beings is quite straightforward to appreciate if you have an open mind to understand things. Those who want to make fun of it or criticize it may do so, but it is their own loss. All the developed living beings come to this world when the semen of the male enters the womb of the female. It is a divine process, and when performed in an ethical manner, there is nothing in it to feel uncomfortable about. Hinduism has used this divine process to be the underlying idea for the origin of this universe. Hinduism says that the union of Purusha, that is the consciousness, and Prakriti, that is the material world, brought forth this universe. The concept is that of the intermingling of the observer and the observed. If you look at this world as you are experiencing it, you will notice that it can be separated into the observer and the observed. Both of these are needed for the existence to manifest itself. The observer can only know about his own existence when he has something to observe, and the observed can only exist when she is observed by the observer. If either one of them is not there, then existence will become unmanifest. Therefore, in Hinduism, it is said that existence manifested by the union of Purusha and Prakriti. This event of the union of Purush and Prakriti is mentioned in this very first shlok of Hiranyagarbha Sukta, wherein it is said that the semen of the Purusha entered the womb of the Prakriti. This is what the first line says, Hiranyagarbha Samavartat. That is, semen and womb came together. The popular description that the golden egg was born in the beginning is not very satisfactory because neither gold nor egg holds any prominent place in terms of the origins of this universe in the Vedas. Semen and womb have been repeatedly used in Hinduism as symbols for the origin of the universe, and therefore the word Hiranya over here actually means semen, not gold. With this understanding, now the next part starts making more sense also, wherein it says, Bhutasya jatah patireka asit. That is, the being's birth happened and the fall of that one happened, which actually means that the one came into this universe. After that, it describes that this one is the source of everything in this universe. Earth or sky or perception or understanding, which basically means that he is the source of physical world as well as the spiritual world. Rest of this sukta is primarily the description of the grandness of this one, and many praises have been offered to him.
Ya atmadabala yasya vishva upasate prashisham yasya devaha yasya chaya amritam yasya mrityuh kasmai devaya havisha vidhema. One who gave self, gave strength, whom world worships, name whose devas, whose shadow nectar, whose death, for which deva offering is given. The poet from here onwards praises the greatness of the one who was born after the union of Purusha and Prakriti. He is saying that he is the one who gave the feeling of self, he gave strength to all beings. All beings worship him in the name of different deities. His shadow is immortality, and death belongs to him. We have already understood that Purusha represents the observer and Prakriti represents the observed. The entire existence is the observer experiencing the observed. The sense of self is also an observation for the observer, but any observation can only happen when there is something to observe. Therefore, the sense of self cannot arise without the union of the observer and observed. This is why the poet says that he gave the sense of self. Afterwards, he says he gave strength, which represents the animation of all living beings. This animation is the life energy we call pran. Physical body of all beings is just a collection of inanimate elements. Animation in the physical body, that is pran, only arises when an observer inhabits it. Thus, we can conclude that strength arose among the living beings by the union of Purusha and Prakriti. The poet then adds that the whole world worships him. Most often, people trivialize this statement and think that worshipping here just means offering oblations to the Dev in fire. Worshipping actually is not just that, but it actually includes all our actions. Whenever we act, there is always a motivation behind it,
And in Hinduism, there are deities associated with all such motivations. If we act to earn money, then we worship Lakshmi. If we act to gain knowledge, then we worship Saraswati. If we act for the preservation of this world, then we worship Vishnu. So on and so forth. This way, all our actions is actually a worship of some form belonging to this universe. Please note, this includes negative aspects of this universe as well. Negative aspects of this universe are as important as the positive aspects, because without the negative, there cannot be positive. All these devas, which include positive and negative aspects of the universe, are the projection of that one itself. That is why the poet says his name is all the devas. Now here, you must understand that whichever dev you worship, you eventually worship that one himself, because he is the one who is behind all the devs. This way, it becomes clear that our entire life actually is his worship, and this explains the statement that entire world worships him. Finally, the poet says that immortality is his shadow and death belongs to him. Shadow is something that always follows us when light is falling on us. When we become enlightened by the light of knowledge, we become attached to the One and therefore become his shadow. This realization about the self is the door to immortality, as it makes us aware about our immortal nature. This idea is what the poet is indicating here by the statement that immortality is his shadow. With regards to the poet's statement of death belonging to him, the idea is that all the living beings after death go back to their origin, which is him.
यह प्राणतो निमिषतो महित्वा एक इद्राज जगतो बभूव य ईशे अश्वधिपदश्चतुष्पदः कस्मै देवाय हविषा विधेम.
Who runs the breathing, blinking, the Great One is only the King of the world, happened, who is Lord in these two-legged and four-legged ones, for which Dev offering is given. Here the poet says that the One is what makes breathing and blinking happen in the living beings. He happened by the combination of Purush and Prakriti. He is the master of all beings, be it two-legged or four-legged ones. We have already understood in the previous verse as to how he is the life force in all living beings and how he arose from the union of Purush and Prakriti. That idea is reiterated here by mentioning about breathing and blinking. Since he is the source of the life force in all beings, he is indeed the master of all beings, which includes both the two-legged and four-legged beings.
यस्ये मे हिमवन्तो महित्वा यस्य समुद्रं रसया सह आहुः यस्ये महापरदिशो यस्य बाहु कस्मै देवाय हविषा विधेम.
Whose are all these snow-filled mountains, the Great One whose is ocean, Ras is together offering, for whom all these directions to whom are arms, for which Deva offering is given.
येन्ध्योरुग्रा पृथ्वीं च दृढा येन स्वस्तभ इतं येन नाकः यो अन्तरिक्षे रजसो विमानः कस्मै देवाय हविषा विधेम.
By whom sky to the height was raised, and by whom earth made firm, by whom heaven was established, like this by whom it was free from pain, who in space with splendor flies, for which Deva offering is given. In verse 2 and 3, while he was said to be the source of all living beings, here in verse 4 and 5, he is mentioned to be the source of the entire physical world also. He is the one whose are all the tall mountains. Ocean is his, which provides taste. All the directions are his arms. He is the one who established the sky high, who made the earth firm, who established the heavens and made it free of pain, whose are sun, moon and other stars who fly in the space with splendor. In summary, he is the Lord of all of the physical world. The two verses 4 and 5 indicate that not only is the one consciousness inside all living beings, which is the Purusha, He is also the physical world, that is the Prakriti that Purusha observes. It is the same Maya about which Sri Krishna talks about in Gita, wherein he says that he has created it from his yogic energies, which he calls Yog Maya. It is this Maya which keeps the living being in delusion, and also the same without which the Purusha cannot really experience himself. In the Purusha Sukta, it is mentioned that it is the Purusha who created the physical world. Now, here in the Hiranyagarbha Sukta, we see that it is the one who created this universe. So, by comparing the Purusha Sukta with the Hiranyagarbha Sukta, we can understand that Purusha is the same as the one in this Sukta. So, from this, we can conclude that Prakriti, which is the creation of the one who is the Purusha, who is also the Brahma, and from Upanishads we know that Brahma is Atma. So Prakriti in that way is the creation of Atma, Brahma, Purusha, or the one who is mentioned in this Sukta. All the living beings are connected with the one, and in that way they all are the one. The one created this physical world, of which ego is also a part. And in this delusion of ego, living beings think that they are separate entity from the one. But in reality, there is only the one who has created everything to play with himself. Yam grandasi avasatastbhane abhyeksheta manasare jamane yatradhi sura udhito vibhati kasmai devaya havisha vidhema. The one who made free land and sky, brought them in light, looked up, in the mind sharpness is full, where the sun rises above, light spreads, for which deva offering is given. This verse mentions that he made the earth and sky to separate, brought light to the world, and with the sharp mind, he looked up at the sky where the sun rises. The science mentioned in this shlok is not quite accurate and is only suitable to the knowledge we might have had during the Vedic times. However, symbologically speaking, the ideas are still quite relevant. The entire creation can be thought of to exist between the land and the sky. Therefore, freeing up the sky and the earth represents bringing entire creation into being. Filling it with light represents the arrival of knowledge into this world. And you must understand that knowledge over here is a blanket term which is used for the process of knowing. So the whole process of knowing is also knowledge in itself, is how it is represented here. If the world was there, but there was nobody to know about it, then the world actually did not exist. So the existence of the world can only happen when someone knows about it. This knowing is symbologically represented by filling it up with light. The process of knowing is symbologically represented by seeing. All living beings are curious about their environment and desire to know more. So, in this desire to know more, they inspect their surroundings keenly, which is what is mentioned in the verse over here. While one might conclude that this keenness to look around the world is inspired from the inherent desire for self-preservation, this is a very superficial way to look at our nature. The desire to be curious about things is our inherent nature to transcend our limitations and attain our true nature, which is infinity in oneness of this creation. In the Purusha Sukta, it is mentioned that Purush divided into many and established himself in all living beings. In all the living beings, this Purusha is trying to embody its true nature, and this striving is the motivation behind our keenness about this world. Hiranyagarbha Sukta here is mentioning that same keenness to look at this world and discover the self by mentioning that he looked up in the sky where sun moves. Apo hayad barhatir vishwamayan garbham dadhana janyantir agnim tato devanam samavartata surekah kasmai devaya havisha vidhema. Water as knowledge peacock feather fell, womb was given people who settled the fire. He in Devas similar happened in Asuras as one for which Deva offering is given. This verse helps us to understand the symbology of peacock feather in Hindu tradition and why Sri Krishna wears a crown with feather. The verse is mostly talking about how different beings came into being and how they are all connected. It is said, on the water of knowledge, the feather of peacock fell and came into the world. The womb was given to the beings, and fire was established there. In the Devas and the Asuras, the one only happened. So, when you look at this message like that, it does not really make any sense because this is a highly symbolic verse with the symbology of water, peacock, feather, and fire being used. Without really knowing about this symbology, you will not be able to understand the message of this verse. So, let's first understand the symbology. The first symbol that has been used over here is water. Now, water symbolizes the ability inside us to experience this world. This is done because in the ancient times there were no mirrors and therefore people could see themselves only in the reflection in water. So we could only know about ourselves by looking in the water, and therefore water is used to symbolize the ability inside us to experience this world, because the experiencer inside us is experiencing himself through this world. Peacock feather is the second symbol that has been used, and peacock feather actually symbolizes the division of the original one being into many beings. If you separate one peacock feather and inspect it, it looks like an eye. Now, eyes are used to look at the world. Therefore, one peacock feather represents one observer. Sri Krishna is that divine observer inside all of us. Therefore, he wears a crown with a peacock feather, symbolizing him to be the observer, which is the basic observer sitting inside all the beings. Now, if you look at the peacock's dance, you can see how it shows so many eyes emerging from one point on the tail of the peacock. So, this is a symbol wherein it is showing how many eyes have originated from one source. This represents the many observers originating from the one. The third symbol used over here is that of the fire. Now, fire is the agent of heat and light. Also, it is a purifying agent and a connection between us and the divine, because all the offerings are made into the fire. Heat is associated with activity, as all living beings become active in summer months. This entire creation with all its activities is a divine yajna, and since a divine yajna is conducted with fire, therefore fire represents the activities of the entire creation. All these activities are ongoing so that the beings present in this world can know about themselves. So fire established in all beings is to help them participate in this divine yajna and in the end transcend it. Having understood these symbols, we can now understand this verse. What has been said here is that the one divine observer fell on the waters of knowledge, and therefore the beings developed the ability to know with the divine observer established inside all of them. The beings were given the womb, which means that beings developed the ability to reproduce. He then established fire in them, and they all started to participate in this divine yajna of creation. The yajna is the process of churning, and churning involves friction. Friction can only happen when there is conflict, and conflict happens when there are the opposites. These opposites are represented by Devas and Asuras. The conflict between Devas and Asuras is eternal and will continue till eternity. So that is why this whole process is just one, and Devas and Asuras became one in that one.
Yashchidapo mahina paryapashyad daksham dadhana janyantiryajnam yo deveshvadhi deva ekasita kasmai devaya havisha vidhema. One who certainly sees great water completely, skill gave who, people who ordained in the sacrifice in the Devas, the supreme Deva became one, for which Deva offering is given. With the symbology of water and yajna explained, it is quite easy to understand this verse. The verse says that the one can see the water in its entirety. He provides skill to all. He established people in the divine yajna of creation.
and he is the one Dev behind all the Devas. The divine observer present within all of us observes all that we observe. This way, the entire knowledge that all beings have is known to him. Since water represents our ability to know, therefore, he can see all the waters in its entirety. We have understood in the previous verse that all our activities ongoing in the world are part of the divine yajna of creation. The fire of this yajna were established in all the beings by the One. His motivation for doing that is to propagate this divine yajna. Therefore, the verse says that he established all the people in the yajna. Now, different people perform different activities depending on their temperament, and in that way worship different devas. But we have already understood that all these different devas are different aspects of the same divinity. Thus, the One is the base for all the other deities, and in that sense is supreme to them.
मानो हिंसित जनिता यह पार्थिव्या यो वा दिवं सत्य धर्मा जजान यश्चापश्चंद्रा बर्हतिर्जजान कस्मै देवाय हविषा विधेम. By me not violence give birth who, for earth who, or gave truth dharma birth, who and water like the moon, on which peacock feathers settled, for which deva offering is given.
The last two verses are prayers to the One. Here the poet is wishing with the One that may no violence be generated from him. He then gives the description of the One as the giver of dharma, who made the peacock feather to come over the waters. Now, as we have already understood that peacock feather represents the divine observer and the water is our ability to observe, therefore the peacock feather falling over the water is union of Jivatma with Paramatma, which is the basic idea of yoga philosophy. The divine being present inside all of us is the source of dharma. If we make him to be our guide and act accordingly, then we will always act in dharma. Acting contrary to it is violence, and the poet over here is wishing that this union may never be disturbed. He is wishing to stay with the divine at all times. Therefore, his prayer starts off by saying that no violence may be generated from me.
प्रजापते न त्वद्देतानि अन्यो विश्वाजातानि परित् आबभूव यत्कामस्ते जुहुमस्तन्नो अस्तु वयं स्याम पतयोरयीणाम्. O Prajapati, none other than you here, other in the world beyond appeared. Whatever desire is, offering to you ours is. May we become masters of treasures.
Finally, in the last verse, the poet concludes by acknowledging the unity in this universe. He says, O Lord of all beings, there is nothing other than you in this world and beyond. We submit all our actions as an offering to you. Doing this way, may we become the masters of the treasures. Superficially, one might think that entire Hiranyagarbha Sukta is a prayer for material treasure. But if you bring the teachings of Gita and Upanishads in picture, then you realize the true meaning of this sukta. In the Gita, Sri Krishna has said that all this creation and beyond know that to be me, and offer all your actions to me to attain the highest. Comparing that to this verse, it is clear that Sri Krishna is the One mentioned in Hiranyagarbha Sukta. In the Kathopanishad, Nachiketa outrightly rejects all material pleasures for the attainment of knowledge from Yama, and in Chandogya Upanishad, Uddalak tells Shvetaketu about the highest knowledge, knowing which nothing else is left for one to know. From these observations, it is clear that attainment of the highest treasure is the attainment of that highest knowledge, knowing which nothing else is left to know. Therefore, considering Vedas just to be sacrificial instructions for material gains is an insult to the Vedas. In Gita, Sri Krishna says that the way you worship me, I worship you back, which means that by surrendering all your actions to the One then surrenders all his actions to you. This state of being is equivalent to becoming one with the One, which is equivalent to be a Dev. This indeed is the highest achievement. After all, what is an emperor but nothing in front of a Dev? A person who sees the One everywhere and submits all his actions to him as an offering is divine in himself. The divine brings him under his shelter and starts to act in this world through him. Such a person does not really have to worry about any of his material needs. Whatever are his needs, the Lord will fulfill them. Whatever he needs to know, the Lord will provide it to him. This is what is meant by what is mentioned in many of our bhajans, where the singer asks the deity to fulfill all his desires. The poet here is asking for that same treasure.
So, friends, this was the Hiranyagarbha Sukta. I hope that I have explained this sukta well to you. I also hope that you will share this sukta with many other people. If more people will learn the ideas of this sukta, I think the communal riots and the communal friction that we see in the society, which seems to be increasing, that could be brought under control, wherein we can include everyone in a single idea, wherein we can say that there is unity, we are all one, we are all together in it, and whatever we are looking for, even if we were to distinguish them, we are still looking for the same thing. So I think it's very important that this idea is conveyed to more and more people, because the friction between different ways of thinking is really increasing in this society. So I hope that this contribution will have some minimal effect in terms of decreasing that friction. So let's hope for that. With that, I will close this video. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.